Our second scripture reading, or third if you count that one as two, is from Matthew 25, verses 34 through 40. If you're one of those folks who likes to read along, it is on page 29 in the New Testament portion of your Bible, in the pews. Hear the word of the Lord. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. How many of you are old enough, like me, to remember the theme song to the show Cheers? Excellent. Do you have it stuck in your head now? You remember it? Making your way in the world today takes everything you got. Taking a break from all your... Feel free to sing along. Sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. Sorry about the tunage. But you know the song? And you do. You want to go where everybody knows your name. And church is supposed to be a place where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. It's a place where we're meant to be a family of faith and accept other people. Whatever your faith tradition might be, it's where we're meant to be God's family. And I have been blessed over the years by having all kinds of wonderful families. There's the family I was born into, probably the most trying of my families. I love them, but really. There's the family of friends I made in various places where I lived and worked. There's my church family from places where I was a member. And sometimes, if it was a big church family, then there were like families within the families. When I was part of the choir and used to ring bells, and in my mission trip days before I got way too old and fat to do that anymore. There's my seminary family and the family I was blessed to gather at various churches where I have been a pastor. And you all are my church family now, but I have this other family too. And they are the largest family I have ever had that numbers in the thousands, many of whom I will never meet, some of whom do not speak the same language that I do. Some of them are here in this room this morning, and there are a few more downstairs. I have an egging family. I was reminded recently when I said something about having an egg friend, and the person went, "A what?" Yeah, I have an egging family. And it is super special to me that I get to bring two of my families together today. Some of you get a chance to meet and interact with each other. And I encourage all of you to pop downstairs after to the social hall after you grab your cup of coffee. Or, Robin, might there be a little snack food down there that they could eat if they get down there without food from up here? Yeah, so either way, see what my crazy egging family does for fun. I will warn you, both groups of folks really are like family to me, which means I know all of you are a bunch of lovable weirdos with quirks and charm and a sense of humor and a life outside these walls, so don't be trying to fool each other into thinking that one group is all prim and proper, because none of you are. I know the truth. And don't be telling stories about me either. It is because of the quirks and the humor and the charm that makes you who you are that I love you guys. You are wonderful. And it's what makes you love each other. And as my friend Basha says, when you find the people that are your kind of crazy, that's your tribe. That's where you belong. I am so wishing that Jim Hollick would have been able to be here this weekend, since he is largely responsible for me having an egging family. Unfortunately, he's at home ill. So for those of you who keep lists, put Jim on your prayer list. And someone remind me, actually all of you, I'd rather be reminded way too many times, remind me to send him a link to this sermon when it's posted, because he doesn't know I'm talking about him. For those who don't know him, Jim Hollick runs Pisanki USA, which is the business from which I buy most of my egging supplies. He is of Ukrainian descent and has been writing Pisanki for something like 66 years. He told me he first picked up a Kiska, that's the wax pen we use, when he was 2. The way he told it to me, he started the business about 10 years ago when his family of origin was going through a lot of losses. And he had been doing this amazing artwork for decades already. But one of his relatives, I think it was the niece out in California, but I could have that wrong, said, you know, Uncle, you do all this stuff and you're wanting something else to kind of distract you from all the sad part. Why don't you start a business? And so Pisanki USA was born. And at various points, he reached out to others who had Pisanki supply businesses to go, how did you get that particular color? And he was often told, well, it's a family secret, or it's a trade secret, or that people wouldn't tell, because that used to be the concept, that the secrets of the dyes and the secrets of the symbols were handed down in families. And Jim realized that the art was going to die out if people didn't start sharing information. So in addition to starting the business, he started a Yahoo group. Anybody remember Yahoo groups? Yeah. So there was a Yahoo group that was a thing, and they shared not only dye and wax information, but started sharing their lives. And it wasn't long before somebody suggested Jim do a Pisanki retreat, and the Pisanki USA retreat began, the first of its kind that anyone that I know of has spoken of. And there were a handful of folks that went. I was not one of them. They stayed up late playing with eggs and wax and dyes. They actually, one of the guys, Tex, for those of you who know him, brought a set of handbells in his car, taught them to ring, and they rang a concert for each other that weekend. Pretty amazing group of folks. They taught each other classes. I missed the first 2. But then when I happened on Jim's website in 2013, I have gone to every egg retreat since then that I could get to. This weekend, we modeled it on his structure with his sponsorship and blessing. And over the years, that old Yahoo group, it became a Facebook group because I guess Yahoo groups stopped being a thing. I don't know. I'm not nerdy enough in that way. I'm nerdy in other ways to know what works. And the Facebook group, just that one, has grown to over 2,000 members. Some from Ukraine, some from Poland, some from here, some from there, some from Japan, all over the world. Has grown into a family of people that visits each other and sets up play dates and have become some of the truest and closest friends that many of us have ever had. And Jim continues to share information freely and to be absurdly generous with people. But I have to admit that when I first went to my first egg retreat, crazy egging folks weren't really family to me. I didn't know any of them. I walked into one of these retreats hours late because my GPS lied to me about how long it was going to take to get there, and I got lost. And it was out in the middle of nowhere in Dalton, Pennsylvania. Y'all know where that is, right? I still don't know. Somewhere near Wilkes-Barre. And you got there were no signs, and you're driving around this building that looks deserted, and I'm going, it says it's here, but where am I going? And I drove around the building twice, and I finally saw Tex, God bless him, who was outside smoking a cigarette, and I pulled up next to him and I said, I realize you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but do you have any idea where an egg retreat is? He goes, oh yeah, you're in the right place, just park over there, I'll help you carry your stuff in. And he gave me a big hug, and things got better. And he took me under his wing right then and there, and he helped me get a bunch of stuff out of my car, and he brought me to Jeannie, who drives the Eggmobile, which will be back. It will be back, I promise. It was supposed to be here, but she got a chance to go to church in Lima. So he brought me to Jeannie at registration. And Jeannie, who is incredibly patient and kind, even when I was in my most anxiety-crazed state, calmed me down, got me going where I was supposed to go. I was late for dinner. I walk in, everybody's already served, everybody's eating, and I'm looking around, not knowing a soul, not knowing what to do. And Nina Shepherdson, who's downstairs, comes up, goes, "Go get food, come sit with me." And life got better. All of them helped me calm down. And I got caught up in that magic of the Pisanti retreat, even getting to meet Jim Hollick, who was a celebrity in my eyes. And all the folks that whole weekend welcomed strangers as if they were friends. And they learned to love one another, even the people they'd never met before. And they treated the least among us, and boy was I a hack. They treated the least among us as if we were valued artists. It was amazing. By the second year I could go, the original site had been sold off, and it took a whole village full of people to pull off a retreat in a new location without enough space, without enough tables, without enough chairs, and without any air conditioning during a heat wave in August. And all of us pulled together and cooked meals, and there was no cafeteria or cafeteria staff, and it was hard. But just like when you go through stuff in your own family, it brought us together. And Jim found a better place the next year. It's okay. But because it was a hard year, and all of the volunteers were a little on edge, I decided that one of my jobs was going to be to make sure everyone coming in felt as warmly welcomed as I had felt the first time I went. And people arrive at retreats I attend now, and they get greeted with enthusiasm and a big hug. They're warned ahead of time. They can say no. It's just a little thing, making sure to get up and greet people enthusiastically. But I've been told it makes a difference, and I know it made a difference for me when people did it for me. And it makes a difference at church. This whole idea of welcoming people. Churches like the ones that welcome folks in without descending on them like a flock of vultures are a joy to be part of. This congregation does that really well. You make an effort to welcome the stranger, sometimes the stranger the better, and you draw them in and you make them part of your family. It is lovely when I am able to greet people by name. Those of you who wear your name tags, thank you. I appreciate it. The rest of you, work on that. Sorry, I'm bad with names. I will call you the wrong name forever. I can be looking at you, and my head is halfway with you and halfway somewhere else, and I'm going to call you something wrong. So do wear them, especially because you're getting a new pastor, we hope, soon. PNC's working on that, right? Yeah, good. Soon-ish, I know. So it's great. It's great when I hear from other people who are new as I greet them how warmly they have already been welcomed. When I invite them to coffee hour and they say, "Oh yeah, 3 or 4 people have already encouraged me to come to coffee hour." It's great, it's wonderful to realize the congregation has already welcomed people in and encouraged them and invited them. Being welcoming is so important for all of us. It's not always easy to be welcoming though, is it? Those of us who live with a bit of anxiety in our lives have to kind of push out of our comfort zones to do that. People who are going through a lot in their own lives and come here because they need some support and comfort sometimes struggle to welcome other people because life is just so overwhelming sometimes. And that's when that last bit of the passage from Hebrew comes into play. The Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can anyone do to me? If we remember that the Lord is really always with us, always helping us, always supporting us, then it's easier to be less fearful, less anxious. We're better able to give up some of that last shred of energy we have and are using to just kind of simply hang on by our fingernails to welcome a new person. And the Lord will help refill our lives and refill our energy, sometimes using the very person that we welcomed. Sometimes that new person that we use that last bit of energy to welcome is one of those angels we welcome unaware. It may be that the person you spend your last speck of energy and love you have to give away is the person God uses to fill you to overflowing again. It doesn't always work that way, but when it does, it's like magic. And that is a miracle happening in an everyday life. And for those times we just can't do it again, we fall back on the passage from Matthew and we trust other people to welcome us. Sometimes we are able to host angels unaware, and sometimes we are the least of these. Sometimes we can feed the hungry, and sometimes we are the hungry. Sometimes we can offer drink to the thirsty, and sometimes we ourselves are simply parched. We have all been the stranger at some time, all been in need in one way or another, whether naked or sick, imprisoned or lonely, displaced or overwhelmed, new to a place or moving on from a relationship that has left us wounded, rejoicing in good times or struggling in grief or loss or any manner of challenges. We're supposed to be on both sides of that equation at different times. For in that way we learn what it is that others might be going through. And we learn what a joy it is to help. And sometimes we even learn that we need to let other people have the joy of helping us. We are meant to do all of this while we are here in this life. We are meant to be welcoming wherever we are, so that everyone feels that they have a place to go, where even if not everybody knows their name, at least someone's glad they showed up. And probably give them a name tag to wear. So welcome the stranger and entertain angels. Help those in need and know that by doing so you are serving the Lord. And above it all, love. Love your Lord and love your neighbor as yourself. For as Romans reminds us, love is the fulfilling of the law. Amen.